Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to the show On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. And let me begin with this kind of preamble. Since gaining independence in 1962, Uganda's history of self-rule has been littered with the tales of political violence by those wielding power and intended to suppress dissenting voices. The 1962 and 1980 elections were marred by sectarian clashes and fraud. It was after the 1980 election that led to civil war and President Museveni's ascent to power after a 5-year Bush war. Since introducing multi-party politics, elections in 2001, 2006, 2011, 2016, and 2021 featured state-orchestrated repression, arbitrary arrests, torture, killings, and disruption of political rallies. The phenomena openly kicked off with Kakoza Mutale Kalangala Action Plan in 2002, which meted out violence against Kano Kiza Besigye supporters, while 2006 saw Ramadan Magara gun down 2 FDC supporters at Bulange after violent confrontation. Over 60% of Uganda's 11 election cycles since independence involved violence, often escalating in opposition strongholds like urban centers. When we come back, I'll be introducing my panel. Let me introduce my panel this evening. I have Major Retired Okwiri Rabwoni, Director Youth and Institutions at NRM Secretariat. Major Okwiri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be on.
We also have the Honorable Paul Mwiru, who is a NUP candidate in the Jinja Southeast parliamentary race. Honorable Mwiru, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers. I'm glad to be here once again.
Let me begin with you, the Honorable Retired Major Okwiri Rabwani. Even though I gave a preamble that is talking about violence in the last maybe so many years of Uganda's independence, in this election, in this race, most Ugandans are happy to see that it's calm, it's normal. Actually, some people are saying it is even boring. But could this be the calm before the storm?
No. Patrick, with every election, we learn lessons. I was a victim of electoral violence, as you know, and when I was a member of parliament. But Uganda is growing. We are growing to a place where elections are supposed to be a peaceful process, and because our national ambitions are bigger than elections. All over the world, elections happen. Elections should not be turbulent. Elections should not be like a state of war. Elections are a process where leaders change, but the country moves forward. But the problem with the developing countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, elections are like a matter of life and death because they determine the survival of the state. So our thinking is that the stronger the state is, the smoother the elections should be.
Honorable Paul Mwiru, he's saying this, the elections should not be violent, that they have evolved, they have learned the lessons, and so what we have seen so far, which everybody is saying so far so good, is an indication of the mistakes that were done earlier have been corrected. Is that what you say?
Well, thank you. From my perspective, first, all along we knew that an election has stakeholders. The state has an interest, the people or the voters have an interest, the candidates have an interest. But all along, the violence has been perpetuated by largely the military, let alone the few acts of criminality which the state would not allow actually to prevail, because we cannot be debating criminality. But I'm talking about instances where violence has been. I'll give an example. Because I've also been a victim of election violence, All of a sudden, over a period of time, we sat with up and said, but wait a minute. Where does violence emanate? Is it from the Wananchi? Because despite belonging to different political parties, it is very rare that you find the voters fighting amongst themselves. Those instances would occur when maybe they met along the way, they're from a rally. But to say that the other group is actually going to make violence on the other in the Ugandan contest, those have been actually instances. But now, the question now is the military. Of course, as a result of what has happened, we have made appeals, international, and also locally, to the people themselves, and even to security, and to the Electoral Commission. I'll give an example. When we were starting the car, they started in Busoga. They gave me a program, we are starting in your area, where I'm in charge. So I said, okay, we need to have a meeting with security. We had a meeting, we showed them our plan. That is how we intend our candidate to move. We intend to have these venues. And they visited them. At first in Chida, we moved well. Because when the RPC raised an issue with a certain venue, we gave an alternative venue and actually changed. And there was no problem with the routing now at that point. So we realized that there was cooperation. That whenever there was even, because I remember when we were in Kaliro, because Kaliro you have to be on the tarmac. When our people were occupying the entire road, the RPC called me and said, look, your people are occupying, can you, then I called them, please create passage, because you must bear into mind other road users, they exist. So the cooperation which actually has been also taking place, largely, was because when the discipline of the players at certain point.
So in other words, that presupposes that the submission by Honorable Kwirabon that we are kind of evolving, we are leaving the mistakes of the past, holds some water. That you have learned, that now you can cooperate, that now you can sit with security officers, that now even they tell you to change, you are malleable to do so.
Yeah, to change, because you see, we have been agreeing on the rules. For instance, when we are going to campaign in a particular area, we choose venues and we normally propose routes where we are going to do. Because security knows all the routings in the area, they normally have been at times stopping us from passing certain roads and then take us. But that has not been creating violence, but has been trying to interfere with the process. Like you saw in Jinja when we were supposed to go to Iganga, I think they overwhelmed, they just blocked off, sealed off all the roads. And they knew we had finished it. They first put us in a very far venue in the Mayugi, from where I wanted to be. Then they are saying, guys, now you pass. By the time we reach, you wouldn't have reached.
Okay.
So people are saying, look, can we use violence? Forced to go? We told them, no, please, let's call off and re-engage. Meaning that the players have a very big role to play.
Okay. So, well, which again says that there's a sort of an evolution of sorts. But you talked about sometimes it is state-inspired security or criminality. And sometimes criminality can cause violence, but sometimes overzealous security officers can also cause violence. So Honorable Okwirabon, there have been episodes, even in this election, recently in Mbarara, where I saw a security officer actually assault the Treasurer General of the National Unity Platform, Mr. Benjamin Katana, on camera. It could have been simple, not something big, but there was an assault whatsoever. You could actually see it. So sometimes, are these just overzealous security officers that needs more training, or it is part and parcel of the command structure?
You see, Patrick, this conversation, we are talking about the tactical, not the strategic. We are not talking about the fundamentals. First of all, when you enter an electoral process, is there good faith between the state and the political actors, between the Electoral Commission and the political parties which are involved? So when you start on the wrong footing, which is, this has ideological and political and historical foundations. The state comes and says, these political actors are not working alone. Because sometimes there are foreign influences or regional influences in the process, who is funding the opposition, What does the opposition do during the day, which they don't do during the night? So when there is bad faith, the state becomes
So you are
worried.
in a perpetual suspicion of the opposition that somebody is,
No,
they are on the joystick of
only.
sorts?
I'm not talking about Uganda only. I'm talking broadly the Pan-African community, the regional, the elections which have happened in Kenya, Tanzania, and whatever. The state is worried because some of the actors are not really independent. So the intelligence, because sometimes the state also, don't blame the state works on intelligence. The state looks at all the actors. Where do their resources come from? When the violence comes, who is instigating the
I hope
violence?
you know, Major Query, in the Ugandan context, when it comes to issues of intelligence, a senior military officer, a general and the former director of military intelligence is facing trouble because allegations of cooking up intelligence.
No, what I'm saying, I'm not pointing out to the tactical issues. I'm saying generally, strategically, the electoral processes start from a position where there is bad faith. So what would be
But exactly
what would be
but
important?
exactly what do you mean by bad faith?
What
do you mean
would
by
be
faith?
important would be that we should have a national conversation, a national consensus, that how can we conduct elections which are free, fair, and peaceful and credible. Now, this means that we all have to understand that Uganda is a project that we believe in. And we have to support our army and our security forces to achieve that aim. But if you start from a position of saying that the military is against us, the police is against us, the intelligence services are against us, you are on the wrong foot. Somebody comes and says, I'm going to be in the political process, but I don't believe in the Electoral Commission. You have already said that the election is rigged before you are engaging. So our thinking was, my thinking, personally, is that let's build that good faith. Let's have a national conversation, because these elections will continue. Every 5 years we will have this process. So we can't continue unless we are not serious about building a stable and powerful country. My thinking was that as we strengthen the state, we support the security forces, and then if there are hitches here and there in the electoral processes, we come together and iron them out. But starting from a process where you say this election is rigged before it starts, then why are you participating?
Well, that's another fundamental issue, Paul, because even yourself, you said you have been a victim of election violence and rigging and all that. And I've heard it from some colleagues in the opposition say, the ground is not fair, this is already rigged, and you present yourself. Isn't that a question that is fundamental?
Actually, the biggest problem, like how my brother, Honorable Robin, is saying, you see, they are mistaking the electoral process with a military operation. And that's why you think, in their mind, they think they have a role to play, a full role in the electoral process. The law as is gives the mandate to the Electoral Commission. And if you look at the Electoral Commission's Act, it gives the Electoral Commission a lot of powers to deal with pre-election matters as they arise, as they arise. Like there would be no way, for instance, the army would go to arrest a presidential candidate and the police, without first dealing with the Electoral Commission. For instance, I'll give an example. They have been defacing our posters wherever the President Museveni is going to be. They have drones which they use with soldiers. They go and deface all our posters. I raised this with the police, but my people wanted to retaliate. Because I told them that, you see, these guys are looking for an avenue of finding a way of participating. And I went to talk, I had to raise it with police, and I said, look, these guys are defacing our posters. What they're doing, actually, like now, I've not even put back some, because I'm waiting for them to get out of Ginger, because they've been collecting all those for the opposition posters. It is an electoral offense. It is now security doing that. You understand? The point I'm making, that once the Electoral Commission is in charge of a process, all candidates, ourselves, we're supposed to report to the Electoral Commission and say, candidate Okiru Aboni is doing ABCDFG, which is against the law. That's why there's a provision for candidates meeting or examination. Okay. But when you raise an issue, the commission calls you. But what is happening now, like when they arrested our people, you see, it is them to determine it. First, like when it's them to determine who to arrest, the offense to charge. They keep on coming with allegations. But the trick is simple. They wanted to come, commit violence on our candidate, cause fear. That's what they've been actually.
Okay, now you're raising a very important issue, and let me ask my producer, Mr. Arafat, to because the UPDF, the military, has come out to say they are going to do a supporting role to the police in trying to make sure there's peace and security, especially during the polls. Because we have over 70,000 polling stations, and if you have to put a policeman at every polling station, you won't have enough policemen. And so they say, well, they do an auxiliary role. I just want to play a small clip there in what they have been saying, how the military can come in to support the police. I hope the guys have it in the
According to Uganda's electoral laws, the police are authorized to keep law and order during elections. However, if the situation becomes overwhelming, the police can request assistance from other security agencies such as the military. Many opposition parties and critics have been expressing concerns about the army's involvement in the electoral process, claiming it undermines the police's role and violates the law. The deputy UPDF spokesperson Henry Obo has said they wouldn't have wanted to get involved, but police numbers are limited to what is required at every polling station around the country, thus making it necessary for them to offer a hand.
Even if all the Uganda police forces, including the IGP, was deployed now to the polling stations, you'll find that the number of polling stations outweigh the Uganda police force personnel. So it's inevitable that the UPDF will come in to give support to the Uganda police force so that we have peaceful election.
The CDF emphasizes that as an army mandated to protect and defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Uganda, we assure the country that this period of electoral exercise will be peaceful and nobody will disturb the peace of the people, and thus allow an environment where every citizen will vote candidates of their own choice.
National Unity Platform Party contested the results of 2021 presidential elections, citing bowed staffing among other issues. As a result, the party came up with a new slogan of protest vote for their 2025 campaigns that encourages their electorates to cast their votes and stay at polling stations until the tallying is done. However, the UPDF deputy spokesperson Henry Obo has asked the voters to vacate the place after casting their vote to avoid overcrowding at the polling station.
Kana akalulu basebe ne banyabo sike ka bulijjo. Mumpulira bulungi. Kana akalulu sike ka bulijjo. Kana akalu bakaita protest vote.
When you finish voting, please, you go home and then you wait for the time for the announcements of the results or the time for counting of it. That's when you could go back. Other than crowding the polling stations and becoming a security threat to other citizens or trying to intimidate others at the polling station.
These remarks were made during the briefing on preparations for the 45th Tarehe Sita anniversary celebrations scheduled to take place in Kigezi sub-region. Dorothy Najita, NTV Tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Dorothy, there, for bringing us to speed on what the UPDF was saying today. What do you make of that?
First of all, let me say that this is symptomatic of the fragility of the African state, that every election is a very contentious issue, and this is not good for business, it's not good for investment, it's not good for tourism. Now the UPDF, my colleagues in UPDF with whom I have contacts, have agreed that elections will never again become contentious. There will be no violence in this election. We will have a peaceful election, and business will go on as usual. Investors will be in the country. We will conduct a peaceful election, and it will end very well, and there will be no electoral violence after, post-electoral violence. Why? Because we have learned, as I told you at the beginning, that people take advantage of elections to destabilize the state. Now the Ugandan state has been building its capacity for a very long time. Now we are strong enough to say that Uganda is among those countries where elections can happen and there is no turbulence. In fact, people are saying that this election is boring because now we have said there will be no tear gas, we are going to conduct a free and fair election, and whoever wins will be sworn in.
But you know what? Because
there will be no
because it was you who was firing tear gas. It was you who would unleash the Kiboko squad. It was you who would have your drones. It was you who were facing allegations of stuffing. So if you say we have stopped, probably we can believe.
First of all, that's contentious because the courts of law made their declarations, and we have the records. So, as lawyers and as leaders and as people who know the history of our country, this has been a process, and we have learned lessons, like I said. But now Uganda has grown. It has reached a point where we can have peaceful elections. Whoever wants to bring violence in this election is not part of the future of Uganda.
But Honorable Foromiro, there have actually been some small episodes where you could say the military has been provoked, but they seem to have been able to hold their ground, and not react. Probably the evolution has actually happened.
Well, I think I want to deal with two things. First, that the election is conducted under a legal framework. The electoral laws provide for a police constable at a polling station. Good enough, I've participated in all these by-elections, which we have had here. We were first in Serere. We were there with the chairman, and the military would come and they mark ballot papers. I think the reason why they brought him, and he was there. We called him one time, we reached there, and then everybody was just at a loss. You understand? And when we were in Hoima, the same happened. But now, the point I'm making, that I agree with my brother, Honorable Kiruabone, that if we agree as stakeholders that we should have peaceful elections, they can actually happen. It is until we want to act outside the law. For instance, maybe we need to understand this. When we went for the by-election of Winnie Kiza in Kasese, we reached when some officers were misbehaving at the polling station. We thought we would manhandle them because they are doing the same. By then we were young. By that.
But you see, even the act of saying you want to manhandle, you want to manhandle armed police officers.
Because we found them.
What do you expect that's going to happen?
We found them backstaffing.
But even if you did that, do you take the law in your hands?
Yeah, but you see, they were actually breaking the law.
Yeah, but you don't take the law. Yeah, but you don't take the law in your hands. That you want to manhandle the police and the army. For instance, what would happen?
Now let me ask you: if you were a supervisor, you have been acquitted by the Electoral Commission, you find armed officers marking ballot papers, what do? You laugh? You understand? Because at the end of the day,
but you see, Honorable Paul, I have a problem. When you see a crime being
Kamara, let me first make this point.
The issue is, my issue with you is when you say we wanted to manhandle them.
Can I say what I was going to say?
Okay, sorry.
Because now you're actually debating now.
Okay.
When we reached there, I don't know, somebody called General Monta. I said, now we have found this situation. What do we do? I said that I'm coming. He said that no. Actually, that's what he told us, that you see, even when you find an electoral official committing an offense, you can only prevent stopping, then you call the concerned person. So over a period of time, it became now a culture, because you realize that the people who participate like in these electoral malpractices, they may not be even the senior officers in the Electoral Commission in Kampala. You understand? But the people within the lower ranks. So that's how the Electoral Commission now we designed the method of accrediting supervisors from political parties, for instance, like in by-elections, to be in every sub-county. And they would create contacts for every supervisor, so that in case there is anything, you liaise with the Electoral Commission. Now it is at that point that if I raise a matter with the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission would assess and they make an assessment either to invite police to come in, then police maybe would invite the army. But what actually they are saying, for instance, that after voting, just go home, don't be there. The law as is provides for meters.
You have made your point.
After casting your vote, you'll be out.
Paul, you have made your point, Honorable Quid.
My thinking was, Honorable Paul Muiru is very much concerned about the justice in the electoral process. But me, I think what is more fundamental is we should not put partisan interests ahead of national interest. Is that in every electoral process, does Uganda come out injured or it comes out stronger? We all have our political affiliations and we are selfish about them. But the overriding interest of every Ugandan and every politician should be, is Uganda stable? After are investors coming in? Or they keep calling us a dysfunctional state? You know our enemies. You know them, where they come from. And they will always say Africans will never stabilize, they will never have free and fair elections. They're always like that. So it's in the interest of all political parties, especially political parties which are nationalistic, like the National Resistance Movement, that we resolve the tactical differences, but keep the national interest paramount.
Well,
that is the interest of Uganda, and that's the interest of the UPDF, and that's the interest of the NRM.
How about that?
Yeah, actually, we have no problem. What would stop us from acting as per the law? Because the problem comes when we get outside the confines of the law. That's why we have impressed it upon ourselves as stakeholders that we respect the law, that actually it is the responsibility to respect the law. But the same law makes a provision which you are making case on, that if we find someone trying to overthrow the Constitution, you can invoke the same Constitution to protect the Constitution. That's why we are running under the narrative of the protest vote. Look for the vote, cast it, protect it, and ensure that actually it is not stolen.
So you presuppose that the people you are up against in terms of contestation for power are actually predetermined to rig the election?
Actually, like when we move along the countryside, actually it is the talk. We are going to rig, it is the talk. But it can also be a psychological warfare on behalf of our people, because in all these processes, actually, where we have been, like we have been monitoring, you don't find, for instance, now, you can't fold the Electoral Commission now at this stage.
Explain to me, in Busoga, where you come from, in the last election, and in here in central Uganda, areas of Uganda, the National Unity Platform was able to win, and so in Busoga. Why is it that, was that given to you, that they let you win here?
No, actually, it didn't come like I was, for instance, like I was in a tally center, and then the returning officer brought about boxes that he was going to recount. He had started on some polling station. I said, but excuse me, at the polling station, I stopped it when they were suppressing the margins. But you see, that is not that would also come when you are organizationally weak to deal with that matter.
Okay.
But our concern is only the violence.
Okay. Honorable.
That once it is there, because even those who want to cause a problem, once they realize that they don't have security to do that, they don't actually do it.
Honorable Queer, you have a point.
I've been avoiding talking about the technicalities of electoral processes. But what I can tell you for a fact is that the mathematics of elections speak for itself. Because Uganda has 72,000 villages. The NRM has 54 to 63 members of NRM electoral machine, the structures.
In every village?
In every village, 63. Now, these people in the opposition don't, in 200 constituencies, they can't field a candidate. Now, how can you say that the electoral process is skewed in favor of the NRM when the NRM is represented by 63 people in every village, and the parishes and the sub-counties, structures at every level up to national level? We have more than 3 million people, administrative, in the NRM structures. Now, if each one of those brings 3 people.
Okay, it is more. You don't include the DISO, the RCC, the GISO.
Okay, let's look at this. The point I'm picking from Honorable Rabwani is that you are actually in 40% of the constituencies in Uganda. National Unity Platform does not even have a flag bearer.
A flag bearer.
So if you have in the 40% of those constituencies you are absent, there's no one vouching for you, there's no one vouching for your presidential candidate, really there will be no one even protecting your vote in that area. So even the start itself on your side is wobbly. Do you realize that?
No, that argument is pedestrian.
But how is that pedestrian when you are absent in 40% of Uganda's electoral?
Calling, you have raised it, and then you are still now.
I'm asking, how is it pedestrian?
Yeah, you will give me the chance to explain to you. I'm saying the argument is pedestrian because you'll find some constituencies where Bobby Wine won a district, and we did not win the election in that area, meaning that the voters may have gone to vote for the presidential candidate and not to vote the parliamentary candidate. That's one. But also two.
So is that a strategy you have?
The people, you see, I was countering what you are preparing, that once you have no presidential candidate, automatically you have lost that area. That's not correct. Then too, you would realize that the people, the votes are always there. People would go and vote. Of course, NUP, a part of the structure of 5 years, we have been trying to build and then quite structure all over. He knows what the GISO, the DISO.
So Honorable Paul Muiru,
what I'm saying.
Let me put this. You're telling me you can have a constituency where people are willing to overwhelmingly vote for the presidential candidate, but in that area you cannot even have a flag bearer for a parliamentary race.
But excuse me.
Have you been in Uganda? You have seen how they have been intimidating them, how they have been voting in some areas. So I don't know whether that one does not apply to other areas, because at least you have been here. I'll give an example. Like in my area, when we were having the youth elections, the GISOs were moving to the parents of our candidates, intimidating them that you see your children will be arrested and taken in a drone, they would have been taking these others. So their candidates actually wouldn't show up.
Okay.
Yet we had actually nominated them as our candidate.
Okay.
They would come and say, no, they will take our children. Even now as I talk, I was trying to create a campaign structure. Then some would come and say that, you see, those people came and talked to my father. My father is very uncomfortable. I will vote for you, but I don't want to participate and even to be seen.
Okay.
After the vote is separate ballot. So it can even be that in those areas, the area you are talking about, given the violence, the Runyankole teachings which have been taking place, some people want to stay safe.
Honorable Kwirabon, are you teaching Runyankole or you are teaching it all?
No, but
do you have a basement, by the way?
Hypothetically speaking,
yes.
What if the opposition had a popular presidential candidate, but they did not have the local councils and they don't have the
structures,
the parliamentary representation? Would you have a functional government?
Well, that would be another problem.
I can answer that.
That's what I'm saying.
They would do change. The same people would do change.
Because what I'm saying,
they would change and join the government.
If you have agreed to have a multi-party dispensation, create institutions that reflect the wishes of the people. Let your interest be reflected in terms of representation at local government level, at parliamentary level, and presidential level. Don't be defeated at local government level, you are defeated at parliamentary level, then you say the presidency, we should have won it. It doesn't happen like that.
But Honorable Kwiri, let me freshen your memory. Because sometime back, you're actually on the side of Honorable Paul Muiru. Two of you used to be in the same party at one point.
Absolutely.
And I remember you harassed, hounded, and beaten. But the same military you give accolades to. Don't forget that. that it has a history of harassment, a history of torture, a history of beating, because you suffered it yourself. I don't know how you forget that.
Yes, but that's what I'm telling you, is that with every election, we have learned lessons.
You remember that,
and we have grown.
trip to Arua on a plane when you're supposed to follow Dr. Kizza Besigye, when you're gotten out of the vehicle and beaten in
With every election, with every process.
Oh my God, you have a poor memory.
I have a very good memory. What I'm saying is that my personal
we
interests...
to discuss that.
My personal interests are not as important as the national interest. And with every election, we learn lessons. And we become better and finer. The UPDF has made some mistakes in electoral processes. The Uganda Police Force has made some mistakes in electoral processes. The Electoral Commission has made mistakes. Even in the court rulings, with all the petitions that have been made.
Even the players ourselves have made mistakes.
We have made mistakes, both opposition and government. But what we are saying right now is that we have reached a stage where Uganda has grown democratically and ideologically. Now, the most important...
You see when I listen to your statement, I actually see those fundamental errors, that both the opposition and government, when we are going into an election, the government is not in an election. It is the NRM. And because the NRM is fused with the government, you cannot even differentiate.
No, but the Electoral Commission is part of government.
Actually, that's why I said the state has an interest in the electoral process.
There is no election where the state does not participate. How would you have an election? Elections are facilitated by the state. And the central parts of the state are security and the Electoral Commission. That's the core of the state. So, if you have a fragile state, you will have turbulent elections. So, if you have a strong state...
Honorable Paul Mwiru, do you share in the optimism of Major Kwirabwan?
This is going to be the most
actually, it is not optimism. We have ever conducted peaceful elections here, even by elections. The one for Entebbe, we had a meeting with the Electoral Commission, security, and agreed. And there was even no single arrest. We had one in Bushenyi, the one of Odo Tayebwa, which brought Odo Tayebwa to Parliament. When we had a meeting, the problem starts, I think, Mr. Kamara, you need to understand, and then the viewers. Once security takes the step to play a partisan role, there will be a problem. Because what my brother here, Bwana Rwabone, you know, to understand, and others, those who issue threats, that for me, I'm a respectful person. If I see a police officer or an armed officer acting within the confines of the law, I would do everything humanly possible to support. But don't expect an officer engaging in acts of criminality. You understand? We are going actually to, because for instance, where has been the problem? That the police and the army want to take sides in these elections. No, I am not. I am only stating what the law says. That's why if an officer comes to me and I see you in a uniform, I have a duty to respect you as an officer.
So let me put this, because...
But excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Did you see leaders of National Unity Platform removing caps from police officers and even slapping them?
When they are done what?
No, not what they have done.
No.
A police officer with a badge.
But even if they have done something, would you do that?
But I saw, yourself, you asked him, I saw a police officer hitting the gun butt our Treasurer General, who is a senior member of the party, who had come out to talk to an officer.
Yes, if those are two mistakes wouldn't make it right. Two mistakes wouldn't make it right.
Mr. Kamara, let me now tell you this.
Is that a response?
Mr. Kamara, in every electoral process or in every organization of any nature, there are leaders who have made this to be known to police, to the army, to the Electoral Commission. That even us, there are of course instances where people can misbehave, like I told you myself. When people are now using the road without being other road users.
You are a very disciplined...
They reach out to us and we sorted the problem.
You are a disciplined politician.
Yes.
Do you really support assaulting police officers?
No, do you support police officers as assaulting members?
No. What I'm saying, police officers have a badge. They have a flag, they carry a flag.
Yes.
A member of the civilian population, a politician assaulting a police officer?
No, actually now...
Especially a leader?
No, now, Mr. Okwinao, let me now tell you this. That the police officer, actually the police officer doesn't exist in isolation. For instance, if he wants to apprehend anybody and introduce himself that, say, I'm so and so, for instance, if he came to me and told me, I'm Okwiru Aboni, I'm a police officer, you have committed this offense, I would give in. But what did they do? What did they do?
He's talking about assaulting a uniformed police officer wearing a Ugandan police uniform.
Why would that happen? This to start with. I would not support, for instance, that whenever we have had, for instance, engagements with these people, like I've been participating in these elections, we have reached out to the leaders because the officer deployed at a particular point is acting under instructions of his bosses. You understand?
What do you mean?
I'll give an example. Actually, like even on my day of nomination, they fired tear gas, and I was given to understand that actually the army leadership arrested the officer who did, because it was overzealous. You understand?
What do you make, Honorable Paul Mwiru, of some of your colleagues behaving in a manner that can be characterized as militaristic in terms of the wearing of berets, the military drills, conducting themselves as if they're a force? Isn't that tantamount to provocation to those who have the fundamental role of having the institutions of coercion? Actually,
the government stores were gazetted. There was a gazette.
How about wearing gloves with steel knuckles?
But is that true?
No, I don't want to go into the speculation.
With spikes?
With spikes. Wearing gloves with spikes and assaulting police officers?
No. Let me come to that. Let me come to that. But now, my brother Okwi doesn't normally speak without facts. Of course, that was a statement by your brother Chituma Magara, who was trying to make a case for the police brutality or interference. But I want to make this categorical clear, that we don't support as a national unity platform misbehavior of any of our supporters. That's why, if you look at the way we have been moving, our president has been categorical about discipline. I think you bear witness. No. When he's saying, please,
he's a very
keep discipline.
Politician.
Yes, that is your opinion. But at least I've seen him, even where I've been, and I've received instructions from him to ensure actually there is discipline.
Okay.
In every morning, he tells people you must, and actually even he will admit.
I've heard Honorable Robert Chagulanyi tell his people to be disciplined all the time. That's
yes,
for sure.
Because we know
is to be non-violent.
But actually they are looking for a spark to come and cause violence.
I've heard Chagulanyi talk about to be disciplined, and I think that should be commended. However, in Rwakitura, in Rushere, when the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi went to do campaign there, which is a scheduled time, which is constitutional, which is legal, and the Wananchi were stopping them. And yes, the security should have actually,
holding in Kony. They want to treat us.
That's what I was saying.
And that is in President Joe Museveni's backyard.
When an electoral process begins in bad faith, when the people...
But what do you mean bad faith? You keep saying bad faith. What do you mean?
Bad faith is that you start saying this election is going to be rigged, the security is going to beat us. So there is an aura of combatancy in an electoral process. You see, these are a state of mind of people, the electorate. By the time you enter the electoral process, people are already in a mode of...
How do you explain the conduct of the people in Kiruhura, for example?
Why should political leaders...
How do you explain that conduct?
Why should political leaders incite violence? Even before the campaign starts, already they say the NRM is going to rig, the security forces are going to beat us. Now some people are saying this election is becoming very boring because there's no tear gas, there's no...
It's about to answer your question.
So what I'm saying is that for the first time, contrary to the last elections...
In Chiruhura, yes. For the first time in Chiruhura?
Not in Chiruhura.
Yeah.
I'm saying for the first time, we have in Uganda a very peaceful and organized election. And the naysayers...
I hope this is not
Kamara,
what I hope this is not what in Buganda
Kamara,
they say Gajali Mabaga.
Kamara, you see,
yes.
It fell short of answering.
Continue like this.
Okay. Kamara, it fell short of answering your question that actually the NRM people were inciting violence by holding sticks and beating us up our people in that
Why
place.
would we?
You understand?
When we're already winning.
No, that's what happened.
No, imagine,
I'm dealing with
Major
inciting
Rabon,
violence.
imagine if Noop had responded in the same manner in Kihura.
In another place.
Doing that all the time.
And probably, you know, fight back and hit somebody, probably even a relative of somebody big.
I think what Major Okwi failed to do was to give credit to our president. Because even when that happened, he didn't lose his head. He told our people, we are united people, we're in the republic. Those instances have happened. Let's focus on the campaign. I think where we need to agree is that myself, Major Okwi, Yoso, and everybody, we have a duty to deliver a free and fair elections in this.
And for us who are not into this election,
no, you are.
No, I'm saying we're not in active politics like you are. All we want is you guys to do your thing in peace, so that we can continue. So as we can also continue with our business.
Actually, now you see, Kamara reminds me when we were in Kawempe. You see, you used to talk like that, but we were rescuing you when your heads were being shattered. You remember when you had to withdraw all your journalists from the field?
I've just been watching.
You understand?
I've just been watching my boss.
So for me, my appeal to my brother and those people in command, that these are our people, those whom we have arrested and tried to frame, that those are smaller numbers. The margin is going to be big. Because the question would be, how do you want Major Okwi tomorrow for us to treat you? Just imagine, you do all those atrocities. You wake up in the morning when we are in command. Honorable Chagulanyi is the fountain of honor.
Honorable Kwiri.
So my request would be that treat us the way you'd want to be treated.
Honorable Kwiri, even us in the Fourth Estate have not been spared the wrath of the army. In fact, I've just been watching a clip of my boss, Madam Onsibirwa, you know, who was very emotional to see one of us, one of our colleagues, who was beaten, blindfolded, taken places in a drone, and he's so traumatized even today. And so traumatized even today that my boss almost reached a point of shedding a tear because he saw the family of one of my colleagues, Raymond Tamale.
If you read the figures of Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Transparency International, they all show that Uganda, in the context of East Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, we have the best practices
in
terms of transparency and respect for the media, the Fourth Estate. You look around, for diplomatic reasons, I will not talk about our neighbors. But Uganda, in terms of press freedom and expression, we are shining.
Yeah, but if you go and ask my colleague in the newsroom, Mr. Raymond Tamale, who was assaulted, beaten, handcuffed, put into a drone, blindfolded, you know, thrown in a police station and not even charged. Come back when he's limping. At
the risk of annoying you, who is in the media, sometimes you people also take sides. It's a fact. Some people are unprofessional, they are unethical, so they get caught in the crossfire. But generally speaking,
in fact, my colleagues are showing to the viewers what happens if you could. That's what happens.
Uganda,
journalism is not a crime.
Journalism is not a crime, but Uganda has a very vibrant media space.
Mr. Kamara,
yes.
You know,
I think you agree with me on that.
No,
see,
but even
when I came here,
look, if today Fox News would take sides with the Republican Party, and that's okay, and maybe the MSNBC will take side with the Democratic Party, that's okay. If you took, which has not happened in Uganda, but I want to tell you, even in advanced democracies, some media houses have taken side, and it's okay.
Let me say one thing, excuse me, sir. Yes. Let me explain this. The way we embraced multi-party politics was a bit premature for us, having come out of a traumatic and turbulent history. So the political parties and the the Electoral Commission and the media, they really get excited when there is an election. So people make mistakes. First of all, ideologically, political parties came prematurely, in my thinking. Is that we had the bruises of tribal thinking, religious thinking. So there's a lot of excitement and anger and emotion over political parties. And I think that fundamentally is what causes a lot of distress and turbulence and problems. So I think we should have a national conversation. What type of political system should we have? How can we have an election that allows business to go on, that allows investors to be safe and confident in the country, that allows tourism to continue, so that we behave like a responsible country, responsible leaders? We cannot be every 5 years, you know, people are, the whole country is as if it's Armageddon.
End of the world. But I don't want to be a kind of man who starts a conversation on Thursday and end it on Friday. So, in other words, I'm coming to the end of our discussion. But Honorable Paul Miru, in this election, both at presidential and the parliamentary race, are you working with confidence that you will carry the day?
Well, wherever our candidate has been or wherever our candidates have been, wherever we have campaigned, it is crystal clear in most places. Of course, we also have, we gather intelligence also. The political intelligence, I was about to say, maybe we are doing, and then we gather political intelligence to see how the situation is moving. We are winning.
What's going to be your concluding remark?
Well, I think I will say that we have a duty as a country to hold free and fair elections, that even those criminal acts which have been committed by Uganda police on our members, they can take a responsibility to extend our liberty, show that actually we are building. Because at least wherever we have had issues, we have engaged. I saw, and they should try to respect our leadership the way we respect them, because whenever we have issues, we reach out to them. That shows we respect that actually their leadership. But you see, like when you go like on the campaign trail, yes, the president is a candidate, but they are leaders. They should adopt a mechanism of engaging with us. Mere arresting people, holding them incommunicado, beating them up is not going to help. So for me, my appeal would be that so far we have moved. Yes, there are mistakes which have been committed, but we can still do better. And we can reach out to, I think, it's up to the IGP to reach out to us to say, yes, these mistakes have been made. Your people are here. We made the mistakes, all of us. Let us correct and see how we move.
All right.
This is what I see. I think we can have a peaceful election.
Thank you. Honorable Okwirabon, some years back as a young man, as a Kadogo, probably you are angry by the state of affairs. You picked a gun and went to the bush and joined Museveni, and you toppled the government. As if that was not enough, you and your friends in the Tutsi were in UPDF, you picked a gun again and crossed the border and went into Rwanda, and you toppled the government. As if that was not enough for Kwirabon, you picked a gun, you and Kabila and other Rwandan forces, and toppled the government in Kinshasa. Don't you think there could be another young Okwiri who would want to pick a gun and is not happy today?
Not at all, because I think most of the objectives were resolved. Not 100%, but the questions of disenfranchisement were largely resolved, especially in Uganda. Now, but there is also a problem of people who believe in a democratic process during the day. Then at night, they want to use extrajudicial and democratic and sometimes criminal and treasonous methods of gaining power. Now, that one, no government in the world will accept.
What's going to be your concluding remark?
My concluding remark is that let us settle down. This election is not the end of the world. Let us love Uganda. You know, when I was in Parliament, we were censuring a minister, and I quoted Shakespeare.
I think I remember that, but you could tell us.
And I said, Brutus says in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar that neither did I love Rome less, but neither did I love Caesar less, but I loved Rome more. So we love Uganda more.
Honorable retired Major Okwira Bwon, Director Youth and Institution at the NRM Secretariat, I want to thank you so much for having honored our invitation and for the time you've given us and for adding value on this platform. Honorable Paul Mwiru, National Unity Platform candidate for Jinja Southeast for Member of Parliament, I want to thank you so much for your time, for your submission, and for honoring the invitation. And I know you sit on different political aisle, opposite each other, but for us here on the spot, we wish you luck in whatever you want to do. Good night, and good night, and God bless Uganda.